is the most 90s movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I
Oh,
forgot
yes.
just how 90s this movie is. You've watched this before, correct?
I'm sure I have before, but this is the first time I've seen it like front to back. And well, we'll get into it.
Oh boy. Yeah, it's just the movie is exactly how I remember it. It's just that every time I watch it, I just forget the sheer level of just grade A cheese, and that's coming from Wisconsinite. There is cheese to the maximum, and that's how it should be. Like, give or take, this is the debut episode of a show which I did not come off the top with this because I was not starting this episode any other way. But this is 0 stars. Mike came up with the title, which I love. And we are going to review things that aren't exactly top notch. And I will admit, this is probably until this next Friday comes. From what I've seen from reviews and what I've heard about how they're presenting this movie and how passionate this guy was, I'm pretty sure this is probably going to be the best video game movie that comes out. This movie is not. As much as I love this movie, every time I rewatch it, I gotta go, okay. Because when we first started doing this, we're like, we should really do a 0 stars. Then we're like, we could do it for the Mortal Kombat movies. I'm like, yeah, Annihilation deserves it. But then I'm kind of like, man, I don't know if Mortal Kombat does. Then every time I watch Mortal Kombat, I'm like, okay, maybe it does.
Hold on, before we get too far, for the 5 of you who are probably not aware of this movie, here's a little synopsis. So, Lord Raiden, played by Christopher Lambert, yes, Highlander himself.
The Highlander.
Handpicks 3 martial artists. Federal agent Sonya Blade, played by Bridget Wilson, who, yes, is the love interest from Billy Madison.
Yes. Oh, Veronica Vaughn.
Shaolin monk Liu Kang, played by Robin Shaw. Yep. And action movie sensation Johnny Cage, played by Lyndon Ashby. And he mentors them. After intense training, Raiden transports the trio to Outworld, the site of an interdimensional fighting tournament. There, the 3 humans must defeat the demonic warriors of the evil Shang Tsung, played by Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa.
Yeah.
Or allow Soon to take over the Earth. Now, I've got 2 questions that they probably have the same answer.
Yep.
One is, how come most video game fans consider this the greatest video game movie of all time, but why did critics despise it?
Because it's fully aware of what it is.
Yeah.
That's part of it. But my God, the thing is that there's actually, for the roles in the movie, they're casted incredibly well.
They are.
Like, to a stupid degree. I said this on Facebook yesterday when I was watching it. I think Lyndon Ashby as Johnny Cage, and this is not hyperbole, I am being dead serious, might be the most accurate casting of any character in a movie, period.
It's practically perfect.
It's unreal. He looks just like him. He acts to a T like him. And it's like, and we'll get into why critics tear it apart, because there is just there's logistical plot holes the size of the Grand Canyon in this thing. But it's corny. It is exactly what those 90s Mortal Kombat games were. Like, to a T. And like 90% of this movie is Techno Syndrome by the Immortals. 90% of this movie is that song.
Yeah, it's like if you adapted a movie out of that theme song, it's just this.
Exactly. That is exactly what it is. And it's just what I want to say. We're gonna get into the movie, but like, yeah, everything about it just came together. This movie, the more I look back at it, I'm shocked that it happened. It's so weird. And I get that it was huge back then and it's still huge now, which is why we're getting this and we're getting the different version of it that we're getting now. But it still blows my mind that it happened. and it made an ass load of cash compared off its budget.
Hold on, I'm looking up the budget or the budget in the box office right now. So this was made for 18 million, but keep in mind this was 18 million back in
95.
Yeah, and it made 124.7 million off of that budget. So yeah, it was a hit.
Yeah, it was a monstrous hit. So they knew what they had to do, and the fact that also they're like, someone listed when they were talking about this, they're like, list why this movie didn't do as well as it should have in 5 characters, and someone put PG-13. Obviously the dash in the middle, but yeah, and I get that, but it made up for some of the great stuff in the movie, because like, you wouldn't have got this movie if it wasn't PG-13. They did not have the balls to make a video game movie be rated R back then.
Yeah, we've come a long way since then.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, go ahead.
Now here's a question. So a lot of the reasons why modern movie fans like view this movie with like a big, like a big sense of irony is because, by today's standards, it looks like garbage.
Oh, absolutely. Like, Goro is a sleep paralysis demon.
And Reptile,
oh.
that is some of the worst CGI I've seen. Arguably worse than the Scorpion King in The Mummy Returns.
Just you wait till we watch Annihilation.
But here's my question: if this exact movie came out today, post Avengers, post like the Marvel Cinematic Universe,
with better CGI,
yeah,
same plot,
yeah, but with like generally the same structure, do you think it would be better or worse received?
You're
because the reason I ask is because I'm watching like Johnny Cage be his snarky egotistical self, and he honestly would fit in with like the rest of the Avengers.
He would. Johnny Cage, like, there's parts of this that would do very well. Johnny Cage would. Shang Tsung with a little bit better lines would. Robin Shaw, it might be the definition of what a 90s what I want to say martial arts actor is. Like, there was no chance in hell anyone else was going to be Liu Kang in that movie. If they did not get Robin Shaw to be Liu Kang, they weren't making that movie. Like,
it would have been a Johnny Cage solo film if they couldn't get Robin Shaw.
Yeah, it's like no one else was doing it. There was no chance in hell. He was the exact guy. And then there's a rumor. I have not had this confirmed. And hold on. I need to look this up quick just to... Because I seen a thing that keeps popping up that apparently the first choice to be Sonya Blade was Cameron Diaz.
Excuse me?
Yeah, like, this came out recently in a bunch of stuff. But I guess she was supposed to be Sonya Blade, but she there was something, she had to be replaced. There was something among what do I want to say? Like, she broke her wrist or something while she was training. And like, this is all happenstance, but there's like a lot of reputable websites like Screen Rant and all this stuff that were talking about how she was supposed to be it, but injured herself during her training for it.
Wow.
I gotta tell you, I don't know what I would like more, because I'm going to be honest. As much as I like Brigitte Wilson, man, is the good chunk of the ham in this cheese sandwich how her lines are delivered.
Oh, yep.
And if you could have got prime 1990, fresh off The Mask, Cameron Diaz to be in this movie as Sonya Blade,
I know. I'm picturing it right now, and yeah,
that could have been something else, because
Honestly, like, it was super distracting seeing Bridget Wilson in this role, because I'm obviously more familiar with Billy Madison, but
Yep.
seeing her come up, like, okay, that makes sense. Both movies came out in '95. She was obviously getting some heat.
Yep. Yeah, it was something else. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the person in me, ever since I found out that information, was like, my God, this movie could have been, in my opinion, even better if it would have had Cameron Diaz. Because in my opinion, she's a better actress than Brigitte Wilson. And she would have fit the bill for what Sonya looked like more, in my opinion. And I think she could have pulled off some of the lines better and also she could do some action. Give or take, she didn't do a lot of it in the Charlie's Angels movies, but she could. And the fact that she was like doing enough training where she broke her wrist doing it, she was obviously doing some hand to hand. But go ahead.
I'm just like looking at a couple random pictures, and well, not necessarily for this movie, but in some generic adaptation of Mortal Kombat, I'm thinking Katie Sackhoff would have been a good Sonya Blade.
Katie Sackhoff would have been another good shout. She would have been pretty good. But yeah, anyway, yeah, they had the cast and they stuck with it and they were good. I will tell you though, man, I don't know. Christopher Lambert is Raiden. Also, they spell Raiden's name wrong.
Wait, do they really?
His name is Raiden.
Yeah, what the hell's the Y doing there?
I don't know. It's like they go out of their way to spell everything correctly in this entire movie, but the only thing spelled wrong is Raiden.
On Wikipedia, it says Raiden, sometimes spelled Raiden with the R-A-Y.
Yeah, because like it wasn't like they changed it in Mortal Kombat games after that. No, it was Raiden, and then it was stayed that. The only time it's not is in this movie. I gotta watch Annihilation again. I think they spell it the right way in Annihilation.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, going back to the actual movie, a little bit away from the casting, which again is all great. We'll get to Kano because there's something special about him in the casting because the guy lied apparently in the movie. But
interesting.
I like how this whole thing starts out with again just Techno Syndrome playing over fire shooting out of the Mortal Kombat logo, which is just 90s. It's the most 90s thing ever. And it just starts out with Shang Tsung in a really weirdly misplaced fight taking Chan, Lu's brother's soul, saying your soul is mine, and he wakes up from the nightmare. The text message, every time I see it from his grandfather, just makes me laugh. Brother dead, come home. Like, what? That's all you got? That's all you're gonna message him? Like, I get you're a monk that doesn't know technology, but you could have been like, I'm so sorry. Like, my condolences. No, come home. We need to talk. And also, I like how in the credits it says that Raiden handpicks these fighters. Everyone that goes for Earthrealm is there because of Shang Tsung.
Yep.
He handpicks Johnny. He tricks Sonya through Kano. And he basically kills Chan to get Lu to go there. And I forget that every time I watch the movie. I'm like, Shang Tsung picks the team that beats his ass. And then Raiden's just kind of there to take credit. But
yeah, in hindsight, Raiden, he didn't really do anything. He's like it's like he's Gandalf, but even more useless.
Yeah, until like he turns into Gandalf the White, which is kind of a thing that happens in Annihilation, but like taking his powers away. It's a thing that happens in the games, so I get it. But one thing that comes from this movie that was never in the games ever until I think it was in Mortal Kombat 9, I think, is Shang Tsung's like absolute fascination with Sonya Blade comes from this movie. And that gets transplanted into games later on. But yeah. Another thing that comes from the movie that you get to see very early when they're on the ghost ship, which we'll get to some stuff on there, is the living hook. It's always just a spike that's hidden in Scorpion's in like his sleeve or something. The movie was the only time that it was like a living being that comes out of his wrist.
Oh,
comes
really?
out of his palm. Yeah, that's never in anything else.
I was always wondering like what exactly Scorpion's abilities were.
Well, it's the Hellfire. It's the taking off the thing. Most of what he does actually like is legit in the movie. Like he could teleport, he could do all this stuff, and you could take his head off, and it's just a skull underneath. But like, yeah, the living thing that I go back and forth every day, whether or not I like that or not. But the living hook is from the movie. I also forget every time we watch this movie just how much of an asshole Robin Shaw plays Liu Kang as in this movie.
Yeah, he plays it very like very either no nonsense or like I'm just gonna do things my way.
Absolutely. Like when he throws Johnny's bags off the pier when he gives him the money, like he just took it. Thanks. And he walks off. Robin Shaw has one of the best cheesy smiles out of any movie star ever. So whenever he just gives that and he just walks away, I was just like, oh man, you should have been in more stuff. I always think of him first from Beverly Hills Ninja before I think of this. Which, oh man, oh, then that makes me miss Chris Farley. But anyway, I have to ask, before we get too far into this, how much about Mortal Kombat do you know?
Really only like the basics.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I'll go through some things that are kind of like just came from the movie and just came from that. But yeah, the tournament and all that they go into about winning and then like Outworld and all that stuff, that is very much from the game. That is 100% ripped clean out of the game. So that's very true. Like I love when they're in the club as well. Before we get too far, when we're on the ship, I love how Sonya lets the guy that she's chasing after fire about 8 rounds from an Uzi into a live crowd, which no one gets hit, by the way.
Yeah.
And then he just blows the guy away with a shotgun.
That whole club scene was very it was very ridiculous in the most 90s ways.
It is, absolutely. But it's like they had to have Shang Tsung have Sonya there, and then the guy who plays Kano started being Australian after this movie.
Okay.
He was supposed to be British. And you can hear in some of his lines that this guy is trying his best to do a British accent and how he talks and how he delivers some of his lines and the words that he says. But I didn't
buy it for a second.
Like, oh no, obviously he doesn't do a good job. You can see that he's trying, but he's failing. And he comes off as 100% Australian. After this movie, they changed Kano's backstory to make him Australian. And now he's the most Australian to ever Australian in those Mortal Kombat games. Like, it's ridiculous. And he gets worse every game. Somehow they find a new level of Australian. It's great. Kano is played off as just the idiot that Sonya has to deal with in every game. But, oh my gosh. There's a great part in Mortal Kombat 9 where they're fighting on a bridge where they're basically just rebooting the original because they needed to redo everything. And then like he just comes face to face with Kano and he's like, shrimp? I don't know. Jokes? It's like you got nothing, but he's Australian. That's all he is now. He's an Australian dude with an eye laser. But yeah. I'm trying to think of how we want to go through all this. We just want to go through the whole beats of the movie or not, but it's like, who are your favorite castings in this before we get too far into everything?
I think my top 3 are Johnny Cage.
Yep.
Because Johnny Cage is perfect.
Yep.
I like Liu Kang.
Yep.
And I think some of his fight scenes were, a lot of the highlight. And then my number 3, which it took me a while to figure out that was him. Kevin Michael Richardson is the voice of Goro.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I did not realize that.
I thought it was him at first. When he first showed up, I'm like, wait, is that him? So I looked it up as I was watching it, and yep. It's Kevin Michael Richardson as the voice, but the actual body playing him, that's Tom Woodruff Jr.
It's also crazy that they were able to pull off, quote unquote, as good as they could of Goro in that. They absolutely at all did not need to have Goro in that movie. Like, I get Goro is important and he plays the role that he plays in the games, but man, they did not need to try for Goro, and they got him in there, and I was quite proud of what they were able to pull off even back then.
He's honestly the best looking thing in the movie, and if that's not CGI, it's even more impressive.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, probably.
It looks like a bit of both,
because the face looks like someone is puppeting that thing every time I look at it, and man, I can only look at it for so long. That thing is the definition of a sleep paralysis demon. It's ridiculous. But yeah, they I have to ask, does it come across just how scattershot the actual tournament is throughout the movie to you?
I like every once in a while I had to remind myself, oh yeah, this is supposed to be a tournament.
This is supposed to be a tournament. Like at the start, Kano, what was I supposed to say? No, like Lou has his fight with random Dreadman in just with a bunch of people around, and then it cuts to Johnny in a random orchard, and he just finds Scorpion. It's like and I'm trying to be like, did they even count wins in this? Because they, like, Kitana goes on later that they're like, they lost 10 Mortal Kombats in a row. I'm like, there's no scorecard, there's no nothing. It just has to be your fighters are left, and then that's it. Because it's supposed to be no one makes it past Goro. And I get that, but then why do you have anyone else?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
No, in the games, like do they have, like, the traditional tournament, like, brackets and everything?
Like
or is it set up more kind of like the Cell games?
The weird thing is, it depends on what game you're in, because basically it just always happens to be Shang Tsung cheated, or hey, you're not playing by the rules. But it's like, basically when you play the games, you have the stories of, like, Liu Kang, who, I need to explain, Kung Lao is in the Mortal Kombat movie that's coming up. And you see Liu Kang mention Kung Lao. Kung Lao is an ancient Shaolin monk that the Kung Lao that's in the movie is named after, or is a descendant of. And so is Liu Kang. So that was one thing I thought I should clear up. But, like, basically when you just play the game, you have the story of the people that get to there, and eventually Liu Kang wins it. But, like, whenever you play the game, you just play as that person, and then you get an ending. Like, they'll pick a random 8 people you fight through until you get to whoever that game's boss is, and then it ends. And then they're like, this is what would happen if Liu Kang won the tournament. This is what would happen if Reptile won the tournament. And you get a different ending each time. So I don't exactly remember how the Cell games operated, but it's basically you just have to beat 8 people, and then you fight Shao Kahn. Or you fight Shang Tsung, or you fight Goro, and then you fight Shang Tsung. That's basically how it ends.
Okay.
So it's kind of like this, but there's actually a structure, because you just go up a tower and you fight them until you beat the person, and it keeps going up and up.
That actually just kind of sound that doesn't sound any different from like Tekken or Street Fighter. The way
it is the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically how almost every fighting game does that. I can't think of one off the top of my head that doesn't do it that way. So it's basically if it's not broke, don't fix it. Almost every video game did it. Like, I don't know who did it first, but yeah, that's how they continue the storylines. And then basically when the next game comes out, they go, these are the ones that were canon.
See, that makes sense, and it also explains why I will wait till we cover the 2021 film to confirm this, but I almost have a sneaking suspicion that the story of Mortal Kombat kind of doesn't work on film. And the reason why is because there isn't really enough real estate, to go through the whole tournament fight by fight.
Yeah, and the problem is that I think there is enough real estate. The problem is I don't think anyone wants to watch that movie. Wait. I should say not casual fans don't want to watch that movie.
Okay, there we go.
Because if you're going to have someone just kind of make a blurb about how, oh, the Shirai Ryu got killed by the Lin Kuei, but not really, and then Scorpion's gunning for Sub-Zero. If you could get a person that could fine-tune all that stuff into it, you could realistically have that movie happen. And I kind of think that's what they're trying to do with this one. I just think that they're going to have the tournament only be a couple of fights, and they're going to be really short and really gory and have a setup. Because I don't remember how long the movie is. But, if you're going to have, the raid is 90% people fighting. It's just you have it in succession. So if you get the people that just want to have people mess themselves up and watch it, you can. It's just that you got to have that pesky story in there for the people that want to. And there is story in Mortal Kombat. If you look it up, there is. It's just that the problem is a lot of characters have their own thing going on. And you have to find the ones that mesh, like Sonya, Jax, Kano, Johnny. They're all in their own little cube, so you can make them be their own thing. Sub-Zero, Scorpion, they're their own thing. And then Shang Tsung, Shao Kahn, Goro, and Raiden, they're all kind of just the dudes in the background that could be there. So you have to be very careful if you're going to make a story about who you pick.
So let me ask you this: how do you think this movie handled the story of what seems like three random people kind of joining forces to take down this boss? I
think it does all right for the most part, but my God, do they not understand what words mean after a while? Because again, in this movie, you have those fights happen, and then apparently if they just throw stuff in. Either Johnny is that self-righteous that he keeps a picture around, or Scorpion was a big fan of Johnny Cage. That fight just ends. And then at the end, it's handled really well. But how we get there is not handled well. Because halfway through, they're just okay, cool. Goro, we need to be really careful of two people. Liu Kang, who is a descendant of Kung Lao, who is a person who he had to cheat for you to beat in the original Mortal Kombat tournament. And then 2, we have Kitana, who is the daughter of Sindel and King Jared, who we'll get into more about why I fucking hate how Ermac is portrayed in Annihilation when we talk about King Jared later on. But because people that don't know, Ermac is my favorite of the colored ninjas, and we'll get into why the version of Ermac, what I really like later, which you don't see in the movie. And then we're Kitana's really dangerous. That is the Shao Kahn's basically adopted daughter, because they just kill Jared, force Sindel to be with, which they retcon how that all happens later on, that Sindel actually killed Jared to satisfy Shao Kahn. But we'll get into that later. We need to be really careful, these two. Can't have either of them fight Goro. Can't have either of them fight me because I'd be in trouble. Cool. There's a fight in the middle of the movie where both of them are supposed to do Mortal Kombat and they just let it end in a no contest. Yeah, that he personally oversees.
Yeah, honestly, when that fight ended, it's kind of like Shao Kahn was like, "Stop! No, come back."
Yeah, exactly. Or Shang. It's like Shao Kahn and Shang Tsung. They were Mortal Kombat was obsessed with S's and K's because it's Shang Tsung, Shao Kahn, and then Shinnok are the first three main villains that are in that. And it's he's just like, I am disappointed in you. I'm not going to make you get killed, but I don't like what you said. And then it's like, cool, he's just going to fight Sub-Zero. Use the element which brings life. What? What?
Probably one of the stupidest moments. But the one that's like,
go ahead.
It's the one that made me laugh the hardest. Because it's like, oh, the thing that brings life, water, but doesn't he make ice out of water? Oh.
And it's like, also, Liu Kang does not know he's fighting Sub-Zero at that point.
He just thinks he's fighting some blue ninja.
He just thinks he's fighting some... Yeah, like, I don't even know if he knows he's fighting the blue ninja. Like, he saw Sub-Zero freeze random, I'm going to do my jitsu for 5 minutes and then try and air kick you and then go into a million pieces. By the way, the only time that freaking Shang Tsung says the word flawless victory correctly...
Yeah, the other time was...
with Goro, where Art gets like 5 hits in on him, and then Goro kicks the shit out of him, and he goes, flawless victory. I'm like, no.
That's not how it works.
Art may not have done anything, but he punched you like 6 or 7 times, and I have a headcanon. I think Shang Tsung believes that flawless victory is obtained if you don't bleed.
That actually makes sense.
Because he doesn't say it in a fight where one of the people bleeds. And I'm like, that's not what flawless victory means. But whatever. So they have that fight where, again, they're cheating and to make Liu Kang win these fights. They don't believe Liu Kang can win these fights pretty much. Because it's like, use the element which brings life. You don't know what that means because you don't know when you're fighting Sub-Zero. But it'll mean a thing. And you know how the water gets there? Because Raiden brings it there.
Cheater.
And it's like, oh, I forgot that this water is sitting here. Thank God Katana stopped by to remind me. And then they're like, okay, cool. Sub-Zero's dead. We need to have someone else fight because Scorpion just fucked off to wherever. Because he didn't die. He's in Annihilation. And so is Sub-Zero, but we'll get into that later. That's actually a story thing from the games. That's an actual thing. But, yeah, so we're just going to have Goro throw around a bunch of goobers into a pit, not show any of the fights because we got to get this movie chugging along. And then he kills Art. It's just like, yeah, that Mortal Kombat character, Art Lang, or whatever his name was. And then we get probably the best fight in the movie outside of Shang and Liu Kang, where he actually had the two martial arts fighters where they're like, there's no CGI, there's no stupid camera cuts. We're just going to have an actual fight. Where I think my favorite line in the entire movie comes from. One thing Johnny Cage is known for is the splits nut punch. Like, that's not a thing they made up for the movie. That is something he is like known for.
Okay, that makes sense.
But what's great is in the video game, Goro is the only character that is not affected by it. Oh,
so they basically made Johnny Cage OP for that fight.
Absolutely. And then he nut punches him. After I take that back. We almost skipped it. My favorite line in the entire movie. He breaks his sunglasses and goes, those are $500 sunglasses, asshole. And then
when he finishes, this is where you fall.
This is the part where you fall down. They bring back that dumb line from the freaking actors where he just punches them off a cliff. He has a, what do you want to call in WWE terms, a squash match with Goro. And, before we get to that, again, Reptile is in this movie, which you forgot to, like, just scrambling around. And then before this fight happens, Raiden is just, like, hiding behind a post, waiting to come into scene, while Johnny is like, to Shang Tsung, I'm fighting Goro so he doesn't kill Sonya, basically. Because they're just on the beach for 2 minutes, like, kind of saying that they're a thing, but they're not. And then he's like, okay, but then I get to choose whoever the next fighter is and the location. And Raiden, like, literally ninja steps from behind this pole going, oh, no, we can't do that. Why did you stop him 2 minutes before? They just have some, and again, in this battle ordained by the Elder Gods, they didn't even shake hands.
Yeah, it's like, this is happening, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. You find out that, okay, I guess he's not, also, Sonya kills Kano in a random fight that lasts 2 minutes, which has another line that is quoted by all sorts of people. You can't win, baby, I studied all your moves. You didn't study the one where she grabs your head and cracks it in half. But yeah. And I would watch the CinemaSins also as well, which is what I'm going to do after we watch this. I love how they're like, I'm glad that Sonya did the hot thing of making her pants into booty shorts. But can you explain to me how she gets a new pair of pants? Because there's no way in hell that she packed a second pair. But yeah. And then we get the deal where he's like, oh, you killed Goro, I'm going to make Sonya fight me. Like, so your obsession was that you want to fight Sonya at Mortal Kombat because you don't believe you could beat any other fighter. I'm glad you're the ultimate bad guy who is behind Goro.
Oh, boy.
Like, I've talked a lot, so I'm going to let you talk for this back half here because this is where it actually gets, like, somewhat good.
You know what? I'll be honest. I think the back half is most of the reason why this movie has the reputation that it does. Because the fight between hold on, what's his name? Shang Tsung and Liu Kang. That actually is like one of the best moments of the film.
It is. We have to get some slack before we get there, though. Don't forget about Reptile.
Yeah, let's talk about Reptile. First of all, the CGI is horrendous. We've been over this.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah, like I said before, this is like probably some of the worst CGI I've seen, and even his cloaking, like his like invisibility cloak doesn't really work at all because like you still kind of see the lines.
Yep, and you like how Liu Kang just hold on. Ah! And then I like a base knowledge of Mortal Kombat. Depending on what game you play, Mortal Kombat is Reptile is more reptilian. But like when he first started, he was just a guy who was in a Green Ninja outfit that spit acid. And then like if you rip the skin off his face, he was Reptile underneath. It wasn't until I want to say Mortal Kombat 3 where like he looked like an actual reptile with a tail. And I think that's what they're trying to emulate here, but yeah, that CGI is bad.
It seems like they had like it seems like they were like trying to have their cake and eat it too by like before he enters the fight, he's like that like awful CGI monstrosity.
Yeah.
And then like I don't know, he gets trapped by this rotting corpse.
I don't know what the hell that was supposed to be. Because like these statues are all over the place, and they clearly look like they have no function, but you throw Reptile into one and he gains the ability to have green clothes and skin?
Because sure.
Sure. And like the fight with Reptile and like Liu actually isn't that bad. And you get to see the signature move that Liu Kang does outside of turning into a dragon with which will get into annihilation. You get to see the bicycle kick. I never thought I'd get to see that in the Mortal Kombat movie, which I think we're going to see it in this one. And oh boy, do I actually hope that they do that. Like, just, I want it. I want it to be stupid. I want him to say something because you actually just see him like on the wires doing the kick in here. But, and then he kicks him, again with the rules with this thing, he kicks him back into that thing. And then he gets trapped into it and turns into a bunch of bugs.
Yeah, it's just weird.
Yeah,
the fight itself is actually pretty good. It's just the start and the finish that's just weird.
Yeah. Oh boy. I almost forgot before we get away from it. Ed Boon got his money paid to him in voice acting in this. In the video games, Ed Boon, who is the co-creator of Mortal Kombat along with John Tobias, is the guy who says, "Get over here" for Scorpion.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and never in the games is there like "come here," I believe is said as well. But there's also like, I think Scorpion said the word "here" 6 different times. Because it was like, "Get over here, come here, get down here."
Yep. I'm pretty sure all the variations were used.
But yeah, I had to get that out there before I forgot, because that was one thing I was gonna. Oh my gosh, I have freaking notes upon notes for this one, but yeah.
Something that I want to mention before we get too far is have you actually looked at like the soundtrack for this film? It's like insane.
Every track is good. I don't know their exact names, but there's never a bad music track in the entire movie.
Oh yeah. I think my 2 favorites that stand out are Zero Signal by Fear Factory, and Twist the Knife by Napalm Death.
I love the names of these. The Immortals, Fear Factory, and Napalm Death. Like, you just look at that track list and you're like, yeah, this is going to be a fighting movie.
Oh, and there's a Typo Negative song in there too. Blood and Fire.
Oh, of course.
Out of the Ashes mix.
Of course. Oh, also, again, since we're going to get to the end fight, but we're going to talk about some stuff first, I have to ask you, Liu Kang was ready for this fight because he learned so much. Raiden goes on and on and on about how Liu Kang needs to learn to do all this stuff before he can fight him. The thing he learns is Sonya has to accept the fight before they can have Mortal Kombat. There's nothing else I can teach you. You know everything. You can defeat the world. 20 minutes ago, you told me I didn't know shit.
He says one thing, and that suddenly means everything.
And then Katana finds him after the reptile fight and goes, "So you are learning." What is he learning?
What, did you do all the learning off screen?
Apparently, it's the Naruto shit where you're about to get into a fight and then they have the flashbacks of all the stuff they learned because they didn't put it in the actual show. But But yeah, again, we have the 90s moment of where Brigitte Wilson has to get put into this freaking Tarzanian level, like, short, skimpy skirt because she's there.
Because 90s.
Because 90s. And then again, because 90s. Somehow, no one noticed Johnny Cage, Liu Kang, and Katana getting into the monk uniforms to follow them into the ceremony. Because 90s. Oh! I almost forgot. We're going to get there. Christopher Lambert is the worst part of this movie, but he's also the best part of this movie. Because twice, the Christopher Lambert laugh as Raiden is the dumbest thing in this entire movie. Sorry. But also, I want to say it's as Liu Kang is fighting someone, or it's Johnny Cage is fighting Goro. He does the nut punch or whatever, and then he smacks one of Shang Tsung's fighter and goes, ha ha! Sorry. He's supposed to be this omnipotent thunder god.
That had to have been improv.
It had to. Every time he laughed, I guarantee he did one of them, and they're like, we need to go back and have you do the laugh again because you're Christopher Lambert. You're an idiot. I love you, Christopher, but you were not supposed to be Raiden. But, okay. That's the last of it. Like Mike said earlier, this fight between Shang Tsung and Liu Kang, although it is the definition of the 90s, you can tell they practice this fight over and over again because of the choreography, but it's good. It's really good. Like, they're legit hitting each other, like legit as you can get. This looks like a fight. And wow, can you tell that they're like, all right, I will accept your fight. And then all of a sudden, everyone gives them space, and it gets dead quiet. They're like, oh, this is where the, like, actual people that know how to do, like, the fighting are going to fight now. Mm-hmm. It's so obvious. They're like, we waited this whole movie to be like, yeah, the two Asians that actually know what they're doing are going to fight now. I know that sounds racist, but man, that was the 90s moment they were pulling off in that movie.
Yep. Like there's no other way to watch this movie than understanding the culture of 1995.
Absolutely.
We were definitely in a different place.
Yeah, that's
although aesthetically, this still kind of feels like a rated PG-13 Power Rangers movie.
It does. And there's points where, you know what, that works. They should all meet up can't think of the director's name, the guy who I guess has been fighting for like 7 years to get this Mortal Kombat movie made the way he wants to. He kind of talks about how he wanted them to meet up kind of like the Avengers do.
Are you talking about the director of the new ones, Simon McCoy?
Yes, I'm talking about him. He's talked about how they have to meet in a natural way. And like Power Rangers are kind of like Raiden is basically Zordon of the Mortal Kombat universe. I'm not going to lie. That's basically what he is. But like you have to have that person that gets them together. And Power Rangers is not too far off. I need 6 middle-aged fighters with attitude. It's not too far off. But yeah, he gathers everybody up, and then they finally get to this fight, and they finally hash it out, and it's really good. It's really, really good. It is what you wanted, like, outside of having, like, maybe a little bit more CGI and some of that stuff, which you're going to get in this one. You saw it in the trailer. They're not skimping. And the only thing that, man, it's one of the dumbest moments in the entire movie. Like, he has the fight with all the goons, and then that's done. And then all of a sudden he screams out, "Sorcerer!" And he finds out he's where Shang Tsung is. And then Shang Tsung's just up here, just up on the thing. And you have to have that dumb moment where he has to go, aha! And he runs up the steps. I laugh at it every time. Like, you guys did not think how stupid that looks. You should have just had him do some, like, exaggerated, like, jump. Like, at this point, you had Goro. You can't tell me that there's some existential, because you have Liu Kang use his actual fire blast at the end of this thing. You don't see it for long, and it doesn't look exactly like it, but he basically fire infuses Shang Tsung at the end of that fight. I'm like, you could have just had him jump up there. You really could have, or had him parkour. You had to have him still frame, no cuts.
Yeah, just like run up the stairs.
Yeah. Did you think it was a little bit over the top also? Again, this is from the CinemaSins guy. I love it. How at the end of the fight, it's like, cool, I'm going to set up Liu Kang to get stabbed with the Mortal Kombat symbol. but I'm going to make it so that the entire floor is not stabbable, so possibly he can miss the spikes.
Yeah, like the way that the like the spikes are kind of like popping up from the ground. just that whole idea just seemed very, very silly.
It did. It very much did. And I just, yeah, it's weird. And you got to do what you got to do in those moments. They wanted to have what they wanted to have, and they did. So, and then he wins the fight. He has the moment with Chan, which is great. And they just kind of go home and set up a sequel.
Yep.
Have you seen a movie set up a sequel that fast before? What comes to mind? Because I was blanking to come up with an example that sets it up that fast. Like, the next movie's going to happen 5 minutes from now.
I mean, like, what are the most, like, obvious examples of sequel bait? But this kind of doesn't count because it's part of a young adult trilogy. At the end of the Maze Runner, you know,
I have not seen the Maze Runner film, so you're gonna have to help me out here.
Okay, so I don't remember exactly like how it's set up, but you know, at the end they get to like the place they need to go, and then when like I think the head of like this organization's like, congratulations, you finished, you know, you completed this thing. Now join us for, and she just basically describes like the start of the second film.
Okay, that makes sense then.
But yeah, that's the only other example of like the most obvious sequel bait that I could think of.
Yeah, that is very true. And then, like, I guess technically we didn't know it was going to happen minutes later, but The Force Awakens had one happen later, but they didn't point blank say it was going to be set up because Star Wars movies never do that. That was the first one that did it like that. But yeah. And man, you want to talk about bad CGI. That version of Shao Kahn is terrible. And the one we get in the movie is terrible, but that one was bad. Have you, like, you've seen this one front to back, like you said this. Have you seen Annihilation?
Again, only bits and pieces.
Oh boy, they stick like 8 times as many characters in that movie, and like 2 of them land.
Let me ask you now, and then we'll talk about this in the next review. But do any actors from this movie return, or is Annihilation essentially a direct-to-video sequel but shown in theaters?
Okay, so I have to think out this exactly. Sonya is recast, Raiden is recast, Katana and Liu are the same. Lyndon Ashby does not return for this movie, and Johnny Cage is killed in the first 2 minutes of it.
Okay, so
and I believe that is why Lyndon didn't come back, because that was going to happen no matter what. But yeah, I believe out of that main cast, you don't ever see who plays Scorpion or who plays Sub-Zero. So I can't tell you if they come back without looking up the actors' names, but I believe the only 2 people that come back are Katana and Liu Kang.
Okay, so as long as Liu Kang is there, I can forgive the rest.
Yeah,
for the most part.
And to be fair, Johnny's killed in the first 2 minutes. Not exaggerating. Outside of some talking, the only people that, like, everyone else is new in the entire movie. They're all characters that have never been in it before. So realistically, everyone else in the movie is completely new people. So they recasted 2 people that were in the whole movie, outside of obviously Johnny, but he's barely in it. So realistically, it's not that bad. But you recasted 3/5 of the main cast from the first movie. And I never know why. Like, I just don't think they could get Christopher Lambert to come back. I'm going to be honest. But I don't know what it was with, like, didn't you say that Brigitte started getting some heat back then? Or was, like you said at the beginning of the review, was you talking about her or were you talking about Cameron Diaz?
I was talking about her, but only because, if I recall correctly, Billy Madison came out the same year as. Okay, yeah, Billy Madison was February, and Mortal Kombat was August. Now that I think about it, I have no idea why Bridget Wilson didn't return.
I don't know either. And
wait, hold on.
Oh.
She was in a film in '97. She was in I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Do you think maybe she was just not able to do it at the same time?
It's possible.
Because that's a definite possibility. So it could be. We'd have to see. And honestly, I actually like who they recasted. I can't remember what the woman's name is, but I actually like
Sandra Hess.
Sandra Hess. I actually like her in the movie. I actually really do. I think she did great. So I have no complaints. And then the guy who plays Raiden, if you've got it up there, in my opinion, fits what Raiden is more.
Oh, James Remar?
James Remar. Christopher Lambert was hilarious as Raiden. I will not take that away from him. He is a great part of why that is a 90s movie. But yeah, the guy who...
Wait a minute. James Remar plays a character in Black Lightning. He's Peter Gamby.
Oh, okay. Nice. Huh.
So that's actually really cool casting.
Nice. Yeah, no, that dude has been pretty good. I have no complaints about that guy, so sweet. And before we go here, and I guess I'll ask you the same thing. Is there anything that you would like to know if it was plot, I want to say, new to the movie, or any game-related things with the movie compared to that batch of games that came out?
Let's see. I guess my question is, my general question is, and I know we talked about a few details, like Kano turning Australian after this movie. Other than that, are there any other like significant effects that either of these two movies had on like the future of the franchise?
I would have to watch again. It's been a hot minute since I watched Annihilation. The last time I was at my I now refer to him as my dad now, the guy who I changed my last name to. I watched the first one with him, so it's a lot more fresh in my head. Annihilation, not so much. But out of this movie, the Shang Tsung Obsession with Sonya is from this. The and it doesn't go back into it, obviously, like I said. The live living claw thing is from this. Kano becoming the most Australian thing ever to hit video games came from this. And there's stuff like, again, I would have to re-watch the quote unquote story stuff from the first games, but like everything to my knowledge is pretty spot on for how it used to be. Like, again, it's just random people showing up at a tournament and then they fight people and then you get past Goro and you get the Shang Tsung and then Liu Kang wins the tournament. That's pretty bar standard for how it should be. Different from the game, man, under no set of circumstances would both Sub-Zero and Scorpion be fighting for Shang Tsung. Like, and especially it be getting along that well. Because, like, in the video, and again, in the video games, Scorpion is tricked by a guy named Quan Chi, which I'm kind of shocked is not in that new movie, because he becomes a big part of everything after he was introduced and kind of like rejiggered. He tricks Scorpion into thinking that Sub-Zero like mercilessly slaughtered his family. Like the Lin Kuei, which is Sub-Zero's clan, does take out the Shirai Ryu under orders from Quan Chi, but he doesn't like go out of his way to relentlessly murder Scorpion's family. Quan Chi lies about that wholesale just to get Scorpion to kill Sub-Zero. So like them getting along, and they say it, they're the worst of enemies, but under my power, they're my slaves. I was like, what power? Like, yeah, I didn't get that. Like in the video game, Shang Tsung can shapeshift, copy people's moves, and then outside of it, shoot a fireball.
Yeah, none of that was represented here.
No, I never understood that. That was the thing where they're like, it'd be really cool if Sub-Zero and Scorpion, fought some people together. Like, their rivalry, I guess, is quote unquote the term better represented in Annihilation, but yeah. It's bog standard for the most part, pretty similar, but not a lot changes. But yeah. How Sub-Zero version 1, I'm going to call him, dies is different. He gets killed by Scorpion normally, but there's canonically always 2 Sub-Zeros. The first Sub-Zero dies and becomes Noob Saibot, which, for all you clever kids out there, Noob Saibot is Boone and Tobias backwards, the 2 creators' last names. And then the second one, which I believe his name is Bihan, becomes the Sub-Zero that goes forward as everything. It's the first Sub-Zero's little brother, I believe. So there is that. But yeah, outside of that, it's basically the same. So you can't say much. Yeah.
Wow. There's for better or for worse, there's a lot of Mortal Kombat lore to dive into.
That's like I said, it would be a tricky thing to do, which this dude says he's been fighting for like 7 years to make this movie the way he wants. If you could get a guy that can very, like with the precision of a surgeon, interject why these people want to fight each other and then just hoy the fights in there, you can make a really good Mortal Kombat movie. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But for now, if you're just a fan of cheesy, stupid video game movies, you can watch Mortal Kombat for free on Peacock, or it's like, I don't know, $3 to rent on YouTube and all the other digital places.
Found this out. You can't rent it on YouTube. You can rent. It's weird. It's so dumb because that's where I was originally going to rent it, and then I remembered I have the Blu-ray of the first Mortal Kombat because I'm stupid. You can preview them on YouTube. You can rent them on Amazon.
That is weird.
It's dumb. Don't ask me why, because YouTube typically YouTube has everything. But whatever. Yeah. Go watch it. If you just want to have a fun time and be stupid, you'll get enough enjoyment out of Johnny, Lou, and Sonya. And then Shang Tsung being a creepo. But yeah. That's what you gotta do. So that has been our first thing of 0 stars. And keep it raw. Don't get it twisted. I like that movie. But this is going to be us picking stuff apart. This is us just talking about why these movies are bad. And give or take, most of the time it's so bad they're good. But I'm going to tell you right now, sometimes it's bad because it's bad. And there's some shit we've got on a dock that's just bad.
Mm-hmm.
I want to come up with a good quote for this. And I want to say it's 0 stars, the same amount of fucks that were given by these directors. I will say that they did give a little bit in this movie.
A little bit.
It still gets 0 stars, but it's still a little bit. Annihilation, they were giving away any fucks they had given for free. They were just none. They were gone. They were fresh out. I will quote Adam Blampier at this point of saying, their bucket of fucks had a hole in the bottom.
Nice.
But yeah. So we will see you guys in the next one, which I think me and Mike are actually going to watch right now. So we're going to be pretty fresh on it. Mike, where can everybody find you?
So you guys can find me on Twitter at CaptainK42. You can check out all my Letterboxd quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. Find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can check out all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we.
Absolutely. And you can find me everywhere at Organoid Zero, Twitch, YouTube, all that stuff. Now that they got Outriders fixed, I'll be doing a lot of Outriders, and I got to figure out my other nights. Saturdays, I have game nights with the people from my Ruby page. Friday, I'm going to be switching to Resident Evil. And then Wednesday, I think I might start streaming Donkey Kong 64.
Nice.
Now that Castlevania game, shout out to them, they made a high-quality HDMI adapter just for N64s. And it works like mint. There's no stuttering. There's no nothing. It works just awesome. But we will see you guys next time. Until then, toodles.
Peace.